So your role is to increase enrolments. And if the words AI or tech make you want to just tune out, like that's for marketing or IT, don't, because today's guest is about to make it all click. Julie Holmes is a serial inventor, a tech developer, and your new magic potion. And I first saw Julie speak Fangirl Moment at a big sales conference about 10 years ago. And I followed her work ever since. And she wowed the No Fluff Fest audience in January 25 and was voted our #1 speaker. So if you were there, you will know that she's amazing. And if you weren't, where the hell were you? And here is your second chance. So with over 20 years expertise in enterprise tech, she's helped brands like Oracle and American Express cut through the noise to actually do something useful with innovation. And today she's here to show you how to tech it up without overthinking. So you can enroll more students, connect faster, and stay ahead without burning out. So let's get into it. Hi, Julie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, Nicola. It's a lovely and it's a complete pleasure to be here.
Good to see you. Okay, so let's start with the obvious question that you probably get all the time. Are we all about to be replaced with robots, or is AI actually our new secret weapon in sales and student recruitment?
We are not about to be replaced by robots, so everybody can breathe easy. But I do think that it's worth kind of pointing out there was actually a great quote that was sent out by the CEO of Fiverr, and he sent it out to all of his employees. And I thought it was a really insightful statement. And it is that in the future, there are no easy jobs. So when you think about all the different tasks that you do or all the tasks that are required for any given role or to manage your business, all those easy jobs that you used to be able to hire somebody to do a gig for, or just kind of like, oh, I'll just have one of my kids do that. Yeah, those jobs are probably all going to be automated. And I shouldn't say jobs, more tasks. We should definitely be thinking about this as a task economy and not a job economy. There are absolutely going to be tasks that are replaced and supplemented by AI, but the overall role that you perform is a really people centric role. It is about people, it is about relationships, it is about making the connection between students and the right schools for them. Like you can't replace that with AI.
How lovely is that? So actually, maybe it will make us have more human interactions rather than fewer, which I think is part of the fear.
I think that's absolutely what it should do, right? If it can free you up to have more conversations with parents or with students or with whoever, even working with your schools more closely, like all of that time that you spend to develop your own intuition, to be able to get to know people better. AI can't get to know your recruits. It can't get to know your recruits. You have to do that. And then you can use what you learn about them and about their desires and about their hopes and about their dreams to make a better match for them and to serve them better.
I love that. Okay. And then on the No Fluff Fest stage, you talked about the 20-60-20 rule, which a few people have talked about since, which is great. I love the impact. But could you just quickly walk us through what that means for maybe someone writing a nurture sequence or set of newsletters, something like that?
Of course. So 20-60-20 is a great formula that I share to reinforce the AI collaboration. This is all about partnering with AI. And I think whenever you read a post, and you and I were talking about this actually before we hit record, whenever you read a post online that you look at and you go, "Oh, written by AI," and you roll your eyes, oh, it's ridiculous, written by AI, it's because they didn't do 20-60-20. And so 20-60-20 says that the first 20% of your interaction with AI is on you. It's on you to lead it, to guide it, to prompt it, to give it context, to direct it in the most appropriate way. And that's that first 20%. And the better you can do that first 20%, the more valuable your 60% in the middle will be. And 60% is where we let AI do the heavy lifting. Great. Like let it go out and run a calculation, let it draft up a document for you. And then the most important piece is the last 20%. And that last 20% comes back to you again. And you have to review it, vet it, validate it, confirm that it matches your intuition, make sure that it honors the emotion and the relationship that you have with your recruits. Make sure that you are considering, any cultural nuances, any generational nuances that might be present, so that you are ultimately the filter for all of that, and ensuring that it represents who you are. Like, does it sound like you? Does it feel like you? Does it portray the emotion that you want to portray? Does it represent you in the best possible way while still being authentic? Now, if you get really good at prompting, you can even get to where you're doing a 10-80-10. Like, you can improve that ratio over time. But I promise, if you are not doing in the beginning at least that 20 and 20 on the bookends of that, then you're getting a lot of crap that everybody else is turning out the same thing. And so the last thing you want to do is to use AI to sound like everybody else. You will absolutely be missing the opportunity with AI if you do that.
Fantastic. That's great advice. Okay. But many people that I find in the education space say that they're not techie. And you're pretty blunt about that excuse. So, what do they actually need to be? If they're not techie, do they need to be techie? And if not, what do they need?
Nope, AI is not a tech problem. I could teach you every button in ChatGPT in 5 minutes or less. This is a technique opportunity. And in truth, recruiters, academics, you are all in the best possible position to be taking advantage of AI, because it's really about communication. And it's about critical thinking, and it's about reasoning, and it's about persistence and grit, and our ability to work through a problem with technology as our sidekick, as our intern, and our ability to be able to communicate what we want, and our ability to be able to critically think about the output that it gives us to decide if that's the right output for the mission that we're on right now. Again, we don't want to be the person that just hits send and copies and pastes whatever it returns. So this idea that this is a technical exercise is completely and utterly false. I can't say it more clearly. You have never been in a better position if you are somebody who is tech averse. Great. You don't even have to type. You can talk to AI. So you can have a conversation with it and talk through scenarios. You can practice conversations. Like, the sky's the limit if you choose to embrace it. So the biggest challenge isn't whether you're techie or not, it's whether you're open to the possibilities.
Okay, great. And I know you've written several books and you've got a prompt today and things, and we'll put some information on that in the show notes. But out of your books that you've written, which was your favorite to write? Was it about AI or was it about something else?
It was about AI.
Okay.
I actually really loved the 101 tip books. So I have a kind of a series of them. We were 2 books into the series. The one that I wrote on sales I think was great fun, in particular, in part because it really challenged me to not wander on the topic, right? People right now, and is often the case, they're really interested in what can I do right now? We're so busy. We've got so many things going on. AI is such a potentially overwhelming topic. And so, what we did in that book, for example, is I specifically went through and said, great, what do people really need to know? They need to know 2016 20. They need to know how to use a prepared prompt framework. They need to know some inspiration of different ways that you can use ChatGPT. What are prompts? Like, here's dozens of prompts that you can use specifically to improve your sales. So it was all about really filtering it down to things that were actionable, that were useful, that were clear, that were concise. And it was a great challenge for me because I'm a talker. And like, I could absolutely talk about this for years, and every day and 24 hours a day, as people will know. So it was a great challenge for me to really narrow down the content to what was truly actionable. And it also just makes a really readable book. Plus, it's in full color, and pretty matters, right? Looks matter.
Pretty
It's
matters.
really readable. So I'm very proud of it.
Nice. Okay, good. You just mentioned prompt frameworks or something.
Yeah.
Could you talk about those?
Yeah. So when we think about prompting, prompting is having a conversation. And I often kind of equate this whole thing with thinking about AI like an intern. And it is true that, people will say, like, oh, AI is your new assistant, or is it going to be your boss? It's none of those things. If you think about it like an intern, and you imagine that you had, somebody who's on work study, or somebody who's even just a new hire, even if they weren't an intern, But the idea that somebody is brand new, has come into your office, and even if they are the most educated person in the world, and we know those people, especially in this field, we know really, really well educated people, they don't always come into our conversations with a lot of context, not always with a lot of common sense. And they certainly don't always come into those conversations with all the nuance that a really good communicator can bring to it, right? An understanding of the political landscape or climate of a conversation, or thinking about, all of the different people that we serve and how we serve them and what matters to them. And so if we think about a framework for prompting, it's about having a tool at our disposal. And I use Prepared as my framework. And so Prepared is the framework I created because I went through and thought, well, how do I get the absolute best results out of AI? And we worked with a lot of different organizations to say, what's missing when you get kind of that mediocre reply? And it's everything from like, what role do I want this tool to play? So it's persona, request, explain the process we want it to go through. That's P, A for aim. Then we get into restrictions, examples, and discussion. And we don't have to go through all these in detail. There's resources on my website if you want to go and check that out. But just to give you an example, I want you to imagine that you know everything practically in the universe, which is kind of where ChatGPT is right now, or any of these tools. They have incredible amounts of knowledge. But if you came in and said, I need to lose 5 pounds after the holidays because I ate a lot of desserts. And if you were to ask a fitness trainer how to lose 5 pounds versus a dietitian on how to lose 5 pounds, you'd get two completely different answers. Both true, both valid, both I wouldn't like, but two very good answers. But it's all about perspective. So which answer did you want? So, when you think about prompting better, it's about making sure that you're giving the right guidance, just like you would to an intern. If a new intern joins my organization and I say, I'd like you to write an email. Well, I could get anything back from that prompt, right? Even if I was to say, I'd like you to write a sales email. But if I was to say something like, I want you to write an email sequence for potential students who are thinking about joining this particular school. Here are some of the concerns. This is where they're from. This is why it matters. I want you to analyze who these students typically are. I want you to think about the types of questions or objections they might have. And then I want to make sure that we address those. I want to talk about their goals. If you give it a lot of really clear guidance, you're going to get a much better output back.
And that sounds like more than 20 to me. Is it? I'm thinking, oh my God. So that's 20, that's your 20. But I guess you do some of that work in the background first to get your framework
Well, you
right,
can. You can actually use other prompts to do that. One of my favorite prompts, for example, is a persona generator, right? So this, you can go in and say, here's the industry I'm in, here's who I work with, here's my organization. I want you to tell me who are the top 5 types of people that would typically work with me. Right. So who are the top 5 students I would recruit? What types of people are they? What are the types of families I would be reaching out to and or supporting in their journeys? And then using that information, I can take that and put that into my next prompt. So if you think about even breaking down your business into what are all the ingredients that you want to have in your pantry, right? If you think about your cooking, you've got a cooking show and you're going to put together the best cooking show ever. Well, you've got all kinds of ingredients in your pantry. You've got all kinds of tools in your drawer, all those pieces. You can build those all out individually and then just mix and match them as you continue on. But that 20%, it's still 20, even if you were to write that whole thing, because I want you to imagine what your day would look like if you were starting that whole process with none of that. Right. So AI is going to take all that information and decide what it believes to be using prediction, to be fair, using prediction and kind of best practices. It's going to come up with what it thinks are the best emails. I can tell you that alone, I know from my days in sales that the greatest amount of time I spent was staring at a blank page. Like, oh, I need to write an email asking them if they've decided. Hi, too informal. Hello, too formal. Hey, what am I, 8? Good day, sir. Oh my gosh, what is going on? And I could type and backspace 1,000 times. So yes, having that brain dump at the beginning will take you some time, but it's still going to be less time almost always. I don't, maybe some people are really fast writers. That's not me, but it's almost always going to be less time than it would have taken you to draft an email that would have been of a lower quality, probably, and wouldn't have covered everything that you'd considered. In fact, maybe the best way, Nicola, to think about it is that it's all about us investing in our critical thinking. Everything that we just described that would go into that first 20 is that critical thinking that you need to be doing. You have to be thinking about what you're wanting AI to deliver for you. And this is your exercise to not only leverage all of your expertise and knowledge, but also to continue to develop and grow your critical thinking, even with AI as an assistant.
So do you think that critical thinking, well, firstly, can it be measured, I guess, and assessed? So do you think that's going to become one of the most useful attributes or skills in the future in order to, because AI is not going anywhere?
That's such a great question. Critical thinking can be measured. There are kinds of tests
Okay.
for it. We've actually seen over the past 20 years that there's been a relatively steady decline in critical thinking
Yeah.
skills universally. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Certainly, one of the reasons is down to tech dependence, right?
Mm.
We see this. I wrote a whole article about this a few weeks ago, actually, that when we look at things like our ability to spatially reason, for example, and our ability to navigate, our natural navigation capabilities all declined when GPS came online. We don't have to read maps anymore. We don't even look up. The fact that I still use GPS to get to the hairdresser I've been going to for 2 years is ridiculous, right? And these are just the kinds of things that once we start to outsource our thinking to technology, then we have to decide whether we're happy with that outsource. Like, do we not need to learn how to spell anymore if we have spell check all the time? Some of us would argue that we do. Some countries, actually, that's not important anymore. They actually don't mind spelling as long as the message gets across. So it varies. But what I would say is that critical thinking is what's going to distinguish people who are using AI really well from those who are relying on AI. And I talk about this as being kind of AI empowered. So
Yeah.
are you AI replacing? So you're replacing yourself, your thinking, your skills, your aptitude with AI, in which case you're right. They could hire anybody to replace you who's good at AI. So your opportunity and your challenge is to make sure that you are bringing your best critical thinking, your intuition, your knowledge, your expertise, your experience, and you're incorporating that with AI so that you are creating this incredible output that is you plus.
Fantastic. So just to, I know you just said critical thinking can be measured. I've never really thought about it before this conversation. So if I wanted to improve my critical thinking and I've got a full-time job and a family and all that, how do I do that? And can I use AI to do that? Is there a
For
way?
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can have ChatGPT create give me questions that challenge my critical thinking. I want you to be a critical thinking partner. You can even challenge ChatGPT to be critical thinking. Like, I'd like you to do more critical thinking. I love using AI to grade output. So
Mm.
you write an email, I have AI grade its own output. How did you do? And to see the way it thinks through what it did, and it'll tell you why it gave itself a B or an A. Usually gives itself a B plus or an A. Like, it's not very bad at giving, it's very good at not giving itself bad grades. But depending on if your goals change, that could absolutely change what it looks for. So let's say that you were writing, a recruitment guide.
Mhm.
Well, you could have AI grade that using critical thinking. I want you to be a critical thinker, and I want you to evaluate this recruitment guide for bias
Mm.
and have it go back through and say, like, oh, actually, you know what? We've used a lot of words that are really masculine, and could potentially turn off, female students. Or we've used a lot of words that are, really Anglocentric. It could turn off some of our more diverse students. Like, what does that look like? And seeing that, but making sure that we are not taking ChatGPT outputs at face value. This comes back to the last 20. We can't assume and shouldn't assume that the output that it's giving us is the right output. It is an output. And it's up to us to decide if it is the best output for what we need it for and for the goals and for the audience that we're trying to reach.
Fantastic. So is ChatGPT your I don't know what I'm saying, Julie. Preferred model?
Well, it's one of the tools in my kit bag
Tools.
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the tools. So when you think about models, that's the large language model, and
That's
every
what I'm
tool
thinking of.
usually has multiple models underneath of it. There's so many words, right? I mean, you could, oh my gosh, you could just go on forever with all the different language and all of that. I think it's one of my favorite tools. It is not the only tool that I use, of course, and different tools. And think about this again, coming back to the intern,
Mm,
right? I can have somebody who went to university and studied lots of things, but they might be better at marketing than they are at sales. Or
okay.
they might be better at, if they're good at marketing, they might not be great at coding. If I wanted them to create an app, and so there's different tools that really are good and specialized in different areas. So, for example, I absolutely love ChatGPT for most things, and it's kind of my go to. Now, it hasn't always been my go to. I started with ChatGPT and then I moved to Claude, and Claude was a lot better because its writing output feels a lot more natural. It doesn't have a lot of the same telltale signs that you would see in AI writing. It does a better job of having a very natural and human tone to its output without a lot of coaching. But ChatGPT 5, GPT 5 is better. Like it's is it as good at Claude? I don't know. A lot of times we'll mix and match. So we'll do outlines with ChatGPT, or we'll do research reports with ChatGPT, and then we'll take them over to Claude and we'll write with them. I use Fathom for all my meeting recordings. I use Plod for all my in-person stuff. I use, like the list goes on I use Google VO when I want to make videos. I use Canva for image generation. Like all kinds of cool tools do different things really well. You just have to pick what is the task that you're trying to perform to match the right tool for it. I think everybody should have one kind of primary staple item in their AI buffet. And that's kind of their go to for everything, unless they have a special requirement. And ChatGPT is a good option for that. For the $20 you spend a month, and you've heard me say before, like you're getting more than $20 of value, just pay for it so that you don't get cut off. Make sure that you are taking full advantage of the subscriptions that you're paying.
Great, thank you. And so, um, thinking about sales and well, admissions people, so then they're not technically salespeople, but they have a sales function and they've got a million things and they're juggling. What do you think would be the biggest impactful thing in terms of selling or recruiting students? Is it going to be content or is it going to be looking at systems? What do you think? Would you hazard a guess that what would be the best, most impactful thing they could do with AI now?
Personalization.
Oh, okay.
I think the ability of AI, like as a first step, let's call this as the first step.
Okay.
It's personalization, right? It's thinking about the way that I would want to read a message is different than how you would want to read it.
Hmm.
The words that would connect with me might not be the same ones that would connect with you, might not be the same ones, definitely won't be the same ones that connect with my kids. Right. We have I have a great example of where I've taken an email from one of my daughter's bosses. She works full time, and I took an email and we converted that into Gen Z. So we took a Gen X email and made it into a Gen Z message. And it's just a great example that whether it's generational, whether it's cultural, whether it's whatever the distinction is, even if it's just what are their goals? Are they a, brand new student? Are they a career change student? Like what are they feeling and thinking? The way that we can write content for them, write emails for them, speak to them, talk about, understand their objections, all of that. AI gives us a means of being able to personalize at scale in a way that we've never been able to do before. And then, yes, when you get into like AI agents and workflow automation, yes, we can absolutely scale that even more. But with the last thing we want to do is to automate poor output. So we need to get good at using it. We need to get good at understanding what it can do. And you need to understand what's possible before you start to automate it.
So, what are the foundational steps they would take? Would it be to build personas in AI, or would it be to put in information about what they offer and their tone and mission and all of that kind of thing?
Well, both of those things
Both.
I think are really good places to start. So, yes, you want to absolutely give it information for custom instructions, is what they're typically called, right? This background information about who I am, who do I, what organization do I represent? What's our tone of voice? What's our writing style? And really investing time in getting that right just means that everything you get back from AI is going to require that much less in the last 20, right? Because you don't want to be in the last 20 changing out individual words, because that one sounded weird and you would never have said that. Like, the better you can get that custom instruction piece and your tone of voice and your types of writing that you do, the more you can define that and massage that and work that to be truly representative of you, the better off you're going to be. That's an investment in your long-term use of that application. So
Mm.
that's kind of almost like setup. Call that, like, that's setting up your use of AI. And you can use AI to help you do that. Like, you don't have to do that from scratch. You can go into Chat GPT and say, you are an expert in Chat GPT. You're an expert in AI, conversational AI tools. I need to help it understand my tone of voice and my style. Walk me through how to do that. And it will help you come up with what that looks like. Then, once you're ready to start actually employing it and using it for output, or using it to develop the documents that you want to send out, your collateral, your messaging, whatever it might be, then yes, I would always start with personas. Because again, if I'm talking to a grandma versus talking to a mom versus talking to a student, that messaging is very different.
Mm. And um, what do you think is the biggest place that people fail then, not doing the tidying up or not doing the 220 bookends? Is that their biggest mistake, do you think?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
absolutely.
So
Hands
we're going
down,
to get the
that's their biggest
foundation.
mistake. Their biggest mistake is not being empowered, but trying to replace. They're
Hmm.
outsourcing their thinking, and
Okay.
anybody can outsource their thinking. If you want to be better, if you want to be the best, then it isn't about outsourcing, it's about collaborating.
Hmm. Great. So just some quick, more fun questions. So you've dabbled in tech for a long time. You must have messed up at some point. Please make yourself human to me.
No,
Tell me.
I've never messed up. Loads of times, so many times. I have, yeah. We've had a lot of things go wrong. In fact, I have a product, a software product out today, and all morning, actually, my entire day has been spent going, huh, I thought that worked.
Oh,
Turns out it didn't. Huh. I'm going to have to fix that calculation, that formula, that logic behind the scenes. So
oh
I
no.
think if I was to say in a global way, like, probably one of my biggest fails, or I should say one of my biggest chasms that I had to cross and biggest learnings that I had to make, was really around this idea that if you're building anything and you don't know who you're building it for, then
Mm.
you can never build the right thing. Like, the last thing you would want to do is to build a rowboat that seats two for a family of eight. Right. And I think sometimes I have, historically, I'm a thinker, I'm somebody who loves to create, and I get so excited about creating that I forget sometimes to step back and validate that the creation is right or needed. I'll give you a great example, and everybody can laugh at this. I have a shoebox of failed inventions, and I am an inventor. I do create physical products, I create software as well. But I have a shoebox where I've, like, all these things where I was like, oh, this really bothers me. I'm going to fix it. And so I had this thing that used to bug me whenever I would travel. I'm a very light sleeper. And when you go into a hotel room, you turn off all the lights and you could land an airplane by all the LED lights that are flashing around the room, right? Between the TV, the phone message. I don't know why they need to leave me a message to make sure I made it to my room. It was only like 4 doors down. I'm pretty sure I got there fine. Between the fire alarm, between the, like, just there were lights everywhere. And I don't like to wear a sleeping mask. So I came up with this idea that what you needed were these little stickers that you could basically take with you in a travel pack that you could pop over all these lights, and they would be removable stickers. And I went through this whole thing, and I kind of built some prototypes, and I, like, wrote up a marketing sheet on it and everything. And then I went and showed it to this buddy of mine, and they were like, well, that's super interesting. It's just that it feels a lot like a black Post-it note. And I was like, there are black post-it notes? He was like, absolutely, there are black post-it notes. And so that's in the box.
Oh, I'd love to see that box. That sounds like a fun box of dreams. I think keep going. I love that spirit. Brilliant. I love that. Okay, so back to AI
Sure.
from the post-it notes. So do you now carry around post-it notes, I guess? Do you carry around black post-it notes for those lights?
Do you know what? I don't. I just got over it.
You just lost
And I've
all
never
trace.
I've never even thought about it since then. It was obviously that was the problem that was forefront of my mind. And maybe I've got other, I've got a million problems and that ain't one of them right now.
Bigger fish to fry. Well, congratulations
I
on your
should
new
though.
product today. Yeah, you should do now. So in No Fluff Fest, you mentioned a musical called Oklahoma, which actually I've never seen still to this day. But do you think that AI could create a musical and the music, obviously, and the script as amazing as Oklahoma?
No,
Okay, why?
no, I don't. I don't. I think it's kind of like saying, could an AI avatar act as well as a human?
Okay.
And it can't. They are AI is a prediction engine. And it ultimately, behind the scenes, what it's doing is it's looking at everything that it's ever seen before and deciding what would be the most likely. If you were to type, Mary had a little, it would 99 out of 100 times give you lamb back
Hmm.
because it's a prediction engine. And that's most of the time what would follow that. But when we think about creativity, when we think about innovation, when we think about music or comedy, I mean, AI is terrible at comedy, terrible at comedy. It's better at funny stories, but it's terrible at jokes. Why? Because we love the unexpected. We love the twist. We love the surprise. We love the emotion. And those are all things that AI doesn't have. And so I don't think it can create that. I think it could create a great parody of it. But I don't think that it could recreate Oklahoma or any other amazing musical that we've heard.
Other amazing musicals are available. So what is the most underused AI tool right now? Maybe because people don't know about it, or do you think people are still underusing ChatGPT? Is there another tool out there that's rocking your world?
Well, I have two favorite. They're both kind of do the same thing, and they are for recording. So I am a woman of a certain age. I can forget why I walked into a kitchen as I step through the doorway. But what I really love is because I'm somebody that has a lot of things going on at the same time, right? I've got products that I'm building, I've got clients that I support, I've got classes that I'm teaching, I've got video courses I'm recording, like I'm speaking at events. I've got a lot of things going on, and I am very much a forward mover, which means I leave like a lot of well, fluff. We're no fluff here, but I have a lot of fluff behind me. I just leave it, like it's just back there. And so I use a tool called Fathom that records all of my online meetings. I have a lot of online meetings, and I love that I can use Fathom to record those meetings to get an immediate summary of that meeting. I can share that with my clients and say, here's everything we talked about. And here's what our next steps are. And here's what you've agreed to do. And here's what I'm going to do. And here's when we're going to do it. But I can also ask that meeting questions. So I can go into Fathom and I can say, what did I tell them I was going to talk about? Or what did I say about this? Or how much did I tell them it was going to cost? And so I can go back through and kind of double check what I told them, did they have any questions that I didn't answer? I can have a conversation with it. So that's what I do for all my online meetings. And then I balance that out in person with this little guy right here. This is one of my favorite things. This
Oh,
is called
yes.
a plod. And I can use that to record my presentations. I can use that to record an in person conversation that I'm having, subject to the laws and regulations of wherever you are located. I always tell people I'm recording. I tell them I have an AI note taker. And do they mind if I use my AI note taker? And most of the time, they don't mind at all. And so those are the tools that I think really change the game for me from a customer service perspective, from a sales perspective, right? Of being able to deliver better service, a better experience. I mean, how wonderful would it be for the students that you work with and the families that you work with that as soon as you get off the phone with them, as soon as you get off a call with them, you're able to give them a complete summary of everything you've talked about, including the things that they were most excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's fantastic. I'm a big Fathom fan myself. I haven't tried Claude, and I like the idea, especially in networking events where you're working the room and then you forget by the time you've got to your bedroom who you spoke to about what. I think it's perfect. I should try and get one. Thank you for that. So, what is one thing that people should never ask AI to do?
Oh, that's a
Is
great
there something?
question. What should you never ask AI to do? I think that you should never ask AI to be you.
Ooh,
And I think what I mean by that is well, there's a great example. So I have a friend of mine who needed to have a very difficult conversation with her ex-partner. And she basically kind of just brain dumped everything that she was feeling. And ChatGPT wrote it up, and the output did not sound like her, right? It sounded, unhappy. It sounded, it didn't sound like the positive person that she was. It only knows so much. It doesn't know all of you. So yes, it can help you to think through your thoughts. Yes, it can help you to be better at work. It can help you to save times. It can help you to do things faster, but it will never have all of your memories. And I think that we have to take that intuition, our memories, our experiences, our expertise. We just can't give all that to AI in one go. Now, someday maybe we get microchips in our heads and all of that changes. I don't know. I'm not a futurist. So I'll just say that for now, I think that you still have to be you and that AI is a tool to support you, but it's no different than spell check. Like it's just a tool in your kit bag. It can't replace you.
fantastic. Great answer. Okay. And then in terms of, so there's a lot of what I think is AI shaming around of people saying, oh, we can tell when you've used a ChatGPT and there are double M dashes here and certain phrases here. And I'm a believer that people should be allowed to try things out. But what's your take on that? Should we just leave people to try it? Should we point it out? Or what's the situation there?
I have a belief with AI that it's the message that matters. And so, in the same way that I don't shame people for using spell check, like
Yeah.
why would I shame them for using spell check? If AI can help me write the sentence more eloquently, why would I shame it for doing that? Like it's my message and it's when we outsource and we start to replace ourselves with AI and we say things like, AI, go write whatever you think somebody wants to hear instead of AI, here's what I need to say.
Yeah.
So
Good.
I think that we shouldn't shame people, but I do think people should do their last 20, right?
Yeah.
If you don't know where a double M is on your keyboard, a double M dash is on your keyboard, you shouldn't have it in your output. But guess what? You can tell AI never to use that.
Yeah.
Like there are words that every time AI comes out with a word and I think, oh, I would never use that word. Oh, that does not sound like me. Like I rarely, oh, I'm pretty infrequent in using the word game changer. And I would never, like, do I ever say, here's the deal? And then I realize I do say that. Turns out I actually speak like AI, which is painful to see. But whatever it is that comes out and you think, gosh, I wouldn't do that, or I wouldn't say that, or that doesn't sound like me, you can put that into your custom instructions,
Mm,
right? I don't ever want you to use that. I don't ever want you to use these standard AI tropes. So, no, I don't think we should shame people for it. Yes, I think people should take ownership of their output and make sure that it accurately and authentically represents who they are and that they're proud of that output, whatever it looks like.
lovely. Be true to their message. And then lastly, should we say, so I was brought up to say please and thank you to everybody. So I say please and thank you to ChatGPT, but someone said I shouldn't the other day. Should I? Shouldn't I? Where
Well,
are we?
it actually doesn't make any difference if you say
Okay.
it or don't say it. I will tell you that there has been some research done, and I can't tell you the validity of this research, but it's estimated that it costs millions and millions of pounds every time we say please and thank you, or not every time we say it, but as people say please and thank you, because that's processing. that has to
Yeah.
go through, and that all that processing costs money. So it's expensive to say please and thank you. So no, you don't need to say it. But you know what? If robot overlords do come and take over the world, like you do want to be the one that was seen as being polite.
Maybe they won't care. Maybe they think I'm just wasting their time. I don't know. It's a hard habit to break. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for this. It's been enlightening as always. How can people find out more about you? Where's the best place to go and learn more about Julie?
Well, if they want to learn more about me, they can go to my website, so julieholmes.com.
Hmm.
If they want to get better at AI and they want to kind of see what's happening in the world of AI, they can, connect with me on LinkedIn. So at the Julie Holmes on LinkedIn, and I have a weekly newsletter on there. I have a weekly newsletter that I send out every week to all of my subscribers that has an AI prompt, it has an AI article or a tip, it has tools that I recommend, all of that every week. And then on LinkedIn, I do a prompt of the week as well. So if you want to just get some inspiration every week, then sign up for my newsletter is probably the best way to do it.
Fantastic. I'd highly recommend. Thank you again for joining us. Very, very, very good of you to give up your time and share your wisdom with us. And I hope everything goes well with your new product launching today.
I really appreciate that. And since it doesn't cost me any extra to say it, thank you for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Take care.